Gerry Barrett, and welcome back to my kitchen. My husband John is gone now, and I miss him every day. But we had almost 65 years together, loving each other and loving our 6 boys. I had some of my happiest years when John and I ran a tiny little cowboy cafe in Montana called the Wagon Cafe. We loved cooking together, we learned from each other, and we taught our sons. Today I'm going to cook with my son Evan. Evan has become the family expert on our recipe for old-fashioned chuck wagon chili. And now we're going to share it with you. So, here's my number 3 son, Evan.
Mom, it's great to be here with you in the kitchen. You know, whether it's been in the kitchen in the restaurants we've worked in over all the years or here in your own home kitchen, I've learned so much from you about cooking and life itself. 94 years, and we've been working so much of that together in the kitchen. I'll tell you, for me, the biggest thing I've learned is how to make the chili, the chuck wagon chili that came from our restaurant. You know, that's the biggest hit everywhere I go, whether it's a tailgate party, whether it's an office party, or just a great dinner at home. It is the big hit, and it's not that hard to make. Some people think it's complicated, but it's not. Now, we've broken this down into 3 segments, and we'll do it that way, and you'll find how easy it is. We have a bean and tomato mix, we have a meat and onion mix, and we have a chili spice mix. And when we put them all together, it makes the great chuck wagon chili. So we're going to start right now with the spice mix.
Every time you start to build your chili spice mix, you want to start with traditional chili powder. You take 8 heaping tablespoons, you put it in, and then after that you add the remainder of the ingredients.
So what we have here are all the ingredients for the chili spice mixture for the chuck wagon chili. And this is the most important part of the chili because, as you know, hamburger's hamburger, beans are beans, tomatoes are tomatoes, but it's the spice mixture that makes the chuck wagon chili. You know, it starts with whole coriander, celery seed, cumin seed. I'll give you the proportions in a minute. We add chili peppers themselves. Now, right there is enough to make a great chili, but we go one step further if you can do it, and we add a couple more exotic ingredients, but they are available, and that is the chili tepino and the chili piquin, and they are extra added ingredients. You don't need them, but if you can get them, it'll make it all the better. So the proportions for this are to take 2 whole coriander, 1 tablespoon, that's 2 whole tablespoons, 1 tablespoon of celery seed, 2 tablespoons of the cumin seed. We add those to 13 of these without the stems and the seeds, and then we add 2 tablespoons of the tepino and 1 of the chili piquin. And then finally, now we have to grind those up. I happen to like to use the mortar and pestle, but basically every ingredient here can be done in a blender, or not a blender, but a food processor. You put them in the food processor and just let it go to work. It'll turn and pulverize them into the kind of powder that you need. The one exception is the coriander. The coriander will not work that way. It'll just bounce around like a little marble inside there. So you either want to crush it over here in the mortar and pestle, or you can, as an alternative, buy the powdered version. Now, by the way, you can save a lot of time too. You can probably buy a powdered version of almost all of these. But remember the ingredients, remember the proportions. And what we end up with as a result is a chili spice mixture that looks like this. And that's a really, really pungent and very, very flavorful mixture. And it's pretty powerful. You only need a tablespoon or 2 to make a good pot of chili. And we're going to show how that goes. So that's how we got from this to the mixture that we get to use. Now we're going to take on the meat mixture. Now normally I do this on a pan on the stove already starting to cook, but in order to get a good shot of it, we brought it over here. What we do is we take 2 pounds of ground meat, ground beef. You can use sausage if you want a little bit, but really beef's the best, and you want to have as lean a beef as you can. This is 93.7 beef. You put that in there and you start to cook it on the stove. We'll bring it over there in a second, but to make this work, what we do is while the meat is cooking, we're sauteing in the vegetables. The vegetables are over here. This is like 4 stalks of celery, 4 stalks of celery diced. We put those in. We add the equivalent of 1 bell pepper. Now it can be any color. I've got a combination of colors here just because using different colors is an attractive thing to do in cooking. But you can use any one color of bell pepper and get the equivalent of 1 bell pepper diced. You put that in there and get it ready. It's on the stove now. We'll take it over there in a second, but it'll be starting to cook up, and you saute the vegetables while you're cooking the meat. And finally, 1 whole, reasonably sized, sweet onion. A sweet onion. Now you take all of that on the stove and we'll saute it, and we'll cook the meat and saute the vegetables till they're ready. And there we've taken care of step number 2, the meat mixture. So now, Mom, what we're going to do is move to the 3rd mix of the successful chuck wagon chili, and that's the bean and tomato mix. So first what we do is we want to get the basic elements of it, and that's to get canned tomatoes. A number 303 size canned tomatoes. 2 canned tomatoes go into it, 2 cans, and that forms the base of the tomato mixture and the bean mixture. Now you want to then also get canned, you can always make them yourself out of dry beans, but that's a lot of work. You can buy them right in the store, pinto beans. Don't buy kidney beans, don't buy any of those other fancy kinds of beans. 1 kind of bean for chuck wagon chili, and that's pinto beans. 2 number 303 cans of pinto beans, drained, and then you put them in, and that helps form the base. Okay, and at that point, what we're going to do is kind of stir them up a little bit, and then we're going to add the next ingredient. The next ingredient is going to be the chili spice mixture. Now remember this chili spice mixture from step 1. Well, now's when we let it work its magic. You know, this wonderful, as I said, pungent and strong, and for this size of a load of chili, you need 2 tablespoons. So you sprinkle that around, 1, 2, and that's going to go a long ways to making the chuck wagon chili. Now we have to stretch it a bit. We stretch it with tomato paste. So we put most of a can of tomato paste in with it as well. And then we add water, because paste alone is too strong. So we add the water, and the mixture is coming along pretty well. We only have a few more spices to add to it before we put it right on the stove and let it go to work. The next thing we're going to do is, a lot of people don't recognize this, because oregano is normally used a lot in Italian cooking, and people don't think of it in terms of this kind of cooking. But oregano, a tablespoon of oregano, is part of what makes chuck wagon chili special. So we put the oregano in, and then we put in a can of green diced chilies. Green diced chilies right here. You can buy them in the store. You can buy whole ones and chop them up, but save yourself the time. Just buy a big can of these things, and in they go, and they add a really nice element of taste to it. And now we're moving on to the garlic. You know, garlic is magic in a recipe. You can use it as cloves of garlic. 3 or 4 cloves of garlic will make it work here. You can use a tube from a store, or you can use a garlic powder. Any way you go, garlic really adds to the taste. After we put our garlic in, we're going to move on to salt and pepper.
Oh, Evan, don't forget what I told you about salt. Salt is a very tricky ingredient. Some people like a lot of salt, and some people don't like any at all. So start with a moderate amount And always remember, you can always add more salt, but once it is in the food, you can never take it away.
You know, that's something I really learned from you, which was be careful at the beginning when you're adding salt. Now, I found with this size of recipe that about 3 tablespoons of salt will do for this size of recipe. But you will want to do this to your own taste. Just be careful. If you think that you might need 3, put in 2 to start with, and then add if you need more. Like Mom says, you can never take it out once it's in there. And then finally, we need to have about a teaspoon of black pepper. Okay? And finally, the final ingredient on this is adding additional chili powder. Now, the chili powder that we're going to put into this thing varies depending upon the amount you want to put in on it. Now, I'm going to put, remember we have maybe about 6 or 8 of these to go in. So I'm going to add these right now, and we're going to add that much more. There we go. Now, right now what we have is a mixture. This is essentially mixture number 3. Now, if we look here, when they talk about chili being a bowl of red, take a look at that chili right there. That's red from tomato, but it's also red from the chili spice mix and from the chili powder that's added to it. Now, you remember from the beginning that we had 3 mixes to work with here, and we're now going to combine them all together. Now, right here in this pot, we have 2 of those mixes. We have the bean mix and we have the spice mix together. Now, let's take a look at that as it is right now. Now, it may look a little bit liquidy, but it'll cook on down, and of course we still have to add the 3rd mix, which is the meat mix, to it. So these are 2 of the mixes right here on the stove, about ready to be combined with the 3rd mix, which is right here. Now, we have been sauteing the hamburger, cooking the hamburger and sauteing the vegetables over here, and you can see you cook till the meat is done. And the best way to tell when your vegetables are right is your onions turn translucent. And once they're done and you feel comfortable that the meat's thoroughly cooked, we're ready to combine this with the bean mixture. Beans and spices, number 2 of them. Final one is meat. We take it up here and we put them together. Ah, look at that. Because that isn't special. Fresh vegetables, good lean meat, great spice mixture, and it isn't very hard to do. And so what we have here now, I want to stir it up, and you'll get a look at how this chili looks, before it simmers a while to let the flavors integrate. Now you can take a look at that. There's your chili, just ready to simmer a little while longer and let the flavors all come together, because you want the spice flavors immersed with the meat. Now, to give you an idea of how this is, by the way, we often, if we find it's better in the second day. So you may want to look at this. This is a pot of chili a day later. And you can see how it's kind of thickened up, and it's just as flavorful either way you go. But we're going to join the eating here pretty soon. So after letting it simmer for about 3 hours, and by the way, longer is even better, the chili is ready for us to eat. Let's take a look at this, Mom. Does that look great or
Beautiful.
what?
That looks beautiful.
All right, we're going to give you a little taste of that. See what you think.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know what we do in our house? And by the way, when people come in, the aromas in the house when you cook this chili, they go crazy. They know what's coming when they walk in the door. We give them the option of adding a little bit of cheese if they want, maybe a dollop of sour cream. The little kids kind of like that. And even fresh for crunchiness, a little fresh onion maybe on top.
Yes.
But that's optional for people to use. And when it's all said and done, we've got chuck wagon chili like you wouldn't believe.
How does that taste?
It's great to me. Well, thanks, Mom. Thanks for giving me the chance to get back in your kitchen with you again. And I always learn from you, and there's nothing like the great food that comes out of Gerry's kitchen.
And you know what I have to say? Yum. Well, I hope you have enjoyed learning another one of our family recipes. It's getting a little harder for me to do this, but I promise I'll keep sharing with you as long as I can. So the time has come for me to say goodbye. Goodbye from your happy hooker. I mean cooker. See you next time. Bye-bye.